very good morning to you. This is Sage live from Kalkine Studios in Sydney this rather overcast Tuesday, and you're watching the opening bell while the US corporate season and key economic data are closely eyed by market participants. Raging virus threats in India and Asian holidays reflect subdued volumes. Let us cast an eye over how market charter is panning out today. The ASX 200 traded marginally up today at the market open. The top performing stocks in this index are Beach Energy Limited and BHP Group Limited, while gold players are up. IT sector is under the pressure following US market performance overnight. Gold prices stormed higher overnight as the weakness in the bond yields and US dollar gave the precious metal a boost. Australian gold miners such as Newcrest Mining Limited, Resolute Mining Limited and Northern Star Resources Limited could storm higher today. Oil prices rose more than 1% as Chinese economic figures and US vaccination rate pointed to a robust recovery in demand in the world's two largest economies. Oil companies such as Santos Limited, Woodside Petroleum Limited and Beach Energy Limited could lead the energy sector. And moving on to the major newsmakers. The big news of the day comes from the operator of Australian online job advertising website Seek.com that has upgraded its guidance on the back of improved operating conditions with revenue outperformance from its Seek ANZ, primarily SMEs and Seek Asia businesses. Then IT player Infomedia Limited announced that it had acquired the US-based e-commerce platform SimplePart for an upfront consideration of US $24.5 million, along with an earnout of up to $20.5 million over 3 years. And meanwhile, Ramsay's wholly owned funding group has been ascribed an investment-grade credit rating of BBB stable by credit rating agency Fitch. And moving on, furniture retailer Nick Scali said that it expected 90% profit rise in the financial year 2021, with sales remaining robust through the March quarter. Leading retailer Super Retail Group said that its sales growth has remained strong through the first 44 weeks of the financial year 2021. Then WAAX component WiseTech Global has matched the guidance issued at its first half earnings result. It had anticipated 470 million Australian dollars to 510 million Australian dollars in revenue and 165 million to 190 million Australian dollars in EBITDA for financial year 2021. And meanwhile, travel player Flight Centre said that its March sales revenue was comfortably higher than the previous coronavirus period record. The March turnover was over 100 million Australian dollars, or 32.7% higher than February. Then Australia's digital property retailer Domain Group's revenue grew 2% in the March quarter, owing to expansion in listings as Australia's property market gained strength. In an update to the Macquarie Australia conference, Worley said that it is on track for an improved result in the second half compared to the first half of 2020 to 21. And meanwhile, the cryptocurrency Ethereum had scaled to a new record high of above $3,000, gaining over 11% in a single day as investors bet on its increased adoption. Its 2021 gain of 325% has eclipsed that of its bigger rival, Bitcoin. And let us now look at the US market performance overnight. That is closely tracked across global markets. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones closed the session 0.7% up. The S&P 500 was also up 0.27%. However, the Nasdaq lost 0.48%, closing near the low of the day. A fall in high-flying tech and related stocks, including Amazon, Tesla Inc. and Salesforce.com, pressured the Nasdaq as growth-oriented shares slid. While markets in China, Japan and Britain were closed for public holidays that kept trading volumes thin, the better-than-expected earnings season glued the market participants. According to Reuters, out of 303 companies that have reported their earnings so far, 87 companies have beaten the analysts' estimates. The S&P 500 companies' earnings are expected to rise over 46% in the first quarter year over year, almost double the rate forecast at the start of April, Refinitiv IBES data estimated. And moving on to the economic data charter scheduled for the week. Missing the market expectations, the ISM manufacturing report on business PMI reflected a 4-point dip in April at 60.7. Apparently, the pent-up demand had to struggle with COVID-related supply-side bottlenecks. Having that, we cannot ignore the silver lining that overall the economy is growing on the back of dedicated fiscal and Fed support and successful vaccine campaigns. And meanwhile, in Europe, the equity markets notched up higher after the European Commission outlined plans to loosen COVID-19 restrictions on tourism sector. A robust earnings season and a strong factory and retail sales data also uplifted investor sentiments. Moving on to the performance of bond markets and the greenback. The dollar index traded lower, making gold more affordable for holders of other currencies, while falling Treasury yields reduced the opportunity cost of holding non-interest-bearing gold. The primary reason for the downtick in the US dollar was that the yield on Treasury bonds retreated on data depicting US manufacturing activity grew at a slower rate in April 2021. The dollar index fell 0.335%. The yield on the 10-year US Treasury notes traded 2.3 basis points lower at 1.6082% after a shortage of inputs restricted factory output as massive fiscal stimulus unleashed pent-up demand. And on that note, let us see what can impact the markets this week. The Reserve Bank of Australia will be deciding on the cash rate in its meeting this afternoon. The economists expect the central bank to keep the official rates unchanged at 0.1% as most economic indicators are running ahead of official forecasts. RBA is not expected to bring about any major change to its policy. It would also continue with its quantitative easing program. On Friday, the RBA would follow up with its financial services review. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, or ABS, data for new borrower-accepted finance commitments for housing, personal and business loans would also be out today. And overall, investors will closely eye half-yearly earnings from 3 of the 4 Australian big banks over the week. In its half-yearly release yesterday, Westpac Banking Corporation enjoyed a stellar first half of 2021 on the back of continued economic recovery in Australia and New Zealand. Then the Australian investors would closely track data on building approvals and international trade in goods and services. And meanwhile, markets would also wait for US employment reports for April, expected to be released later in the week on May the 7th. Besides a speech by Deputy Governor Guy Debelle on Thursday, along with the statement on monetary policy on Friday, would be keenly tracked. And now a short weather report. For those wondering if you need to reach for your brolly on the way out, you may just need to. Eastern Australia is expecting a little taste of winter over the next few days, with changes in the glorious autumn conditions expected. Heavy rains have been forecast by the Bureau of Meteorology, or the BOM, for parts of the eastern states, with Victorians being warned to rug up as showers, thunderstorms and strong winds are on their way for Tuesday, brought in by a low-pressure system. Sydney's maximum temperature will hover around the low 20s with rain, whilst Melbourne and Canberra will be sitting chilly at close to 15 degrees. Brisbane's temperature is set to reach 26 degrees with a chance of a thunderstorm. And thanks for your time watching. That's all for now. But do stay tuned for more live updates on Kalkine TV across economy, markets and the diverse sectors. This is Sage signing off for now.